panel is one of my favorite panel, and I'll tell you why. The title is Digital Transformation and the Power of Data. And we have amazing panelists, but I will let my co-host Webb talks about it. Most interesting thing is it's such a profound topic, especially in today's context. If we really see, especially due to pandemic, we all have to collaborate and figure out way how we can share the data. And there are so many complexities involved. So let's learn from our amazing panelists. But before I hand it out to Webb, I want to talk a little bit about Webb. He's an entrepreneur. He's a venture capitalist. He is a founding partner of NTT Those of you who doesn't know about NTT, it's one of the most phenomenal organizations, and they are doing amazing work globally. Please look them up. Webb was named as 25 unsung heroes of internet from 99. Webb and me, we share the same last name. It's a pure coincidence. I don't know him personally. He's not my brother. He holds Bachelor's of Science in Electrical Engineering from George Mason University. Yes, he is not an IITian, but Penn IIT USA has adopted him. So he is one of our own. Let me invite Webb to discuss and share with us what he has planned for us today.
Sanjeev, thank you. You have to point it out that you are from IIT and I'm not. So thank you for pointing that out. And then you also have to point out that someone said something about me in 1999, pointing out that I'm getting really old. So, but thank you to you and to all of the IIT alumni for hosting such an amazing 2 days of conference. I'm humbled and really excited to host this fireside chat with two amazing friends of mine, but more importantly, the industry leaders on their domains. The first one I'd like to introduce Dr. John Halamka, MSMD. I can't see him, so can we just make sure that we are also showing the other two panelists, please?
Don't worry, I'm here.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure everybody else can see it, John.
No, it's there on the gallery view, Webb. So everyone is there on the gallery. Go ahead.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So John is the president of Mayo's clinic platform, leads a portfolio of platform business focused on transforming healthcare by leveraging artificial intelligence, connected healthcare devices, and network of trusted partners. Trained in emergency medicine and medical informatics, John has been developing, implementing healthcare information strategy and policy for more than 25 years. John received his degree from Stanford University, University of California, San Francisco, and UCLA Medical Center of Emergency Medicine. Amazing thing about John, if you get to have a conversation about him, he very early on in his career, he was a software developer. He started a software company which was acquired. So John can really get into the artificial intelligence and connected devices, data, and AI. John recently was also being admitted to National Academy of Medicine. This is one of the highest honor in medicine, which recognizes the professionals in healthcare for highest achievement in service and commitment. John also has advised multiple presidents on healthcare and policies, and also advises the prime ministers of several countries. He has written many books, many articles, and played a key role in electronic records systems in America. The key thing about John, I really admire, he also runs a Unity Farms in Massachusetts, which includes 250 animals, 30 acres of agriculture production, and a winery. And I'm looking forward to visiting that winery soon in coming months. The other panelist we have is Abhijit Dubey, the senior partner from McKinsey & Company. Abhijit is a leader in a McKinsey digital practice. He serves the board of directors, CEOs, senior executives, CIOs on their digital transformations. Abhijit is a core leader of McKinsey high-tech media and entertainment and telecommunication practice and advises prominent technology companies, including enterprise SaaS companies, IT services on strategy, cooperation, and go-to-market issues. Abhijit has spent 2 decades with McKinsey. He's also responsible for developing, launching, and scaling digital products and solutions that serves the clients. Abhijit not only led McKinsey global cloud computing efforts for nearly a decade, he also leads the firm's software work in North America. Abhijit received his degree, undergraduate from IIT Bombay, and then also went to Stanford for his MS. So today, we are going to really cover multiple topics in next close to 45 minutes. But let's start with you, John. I know right after you basically joined Mayo Clinic, we hit by COVID-19 pandemic. What has been like taking this new role in the midst of such an unprecedented time?
I'm going to give you a surprising answer. Empowering. And why? So why in 1999 did you make a substantial impact to the internet? Well, it was because government, academia, and industry aligned with a sense of purpose and urgency. And so what I've seen in these last 10 months is that we have been able to move forward the digital transformation, not only of Mayo Clinic, but of the healthcare sector and much of the infrastructure of this country in the United States, because the pandemic changed regulatory restrictions and built a sense that we had to work together even among competitors. I've seen Google, Apple, and Microsoft work together for the benefit of all and hegemony of none. You would have never seen that pre-pandemic.
That's really interesting, John. Abhijit, has your consulting strategy changed in 2020 as a result of COVID-19?
I think the strategy per se, no, but perhaps I can give a flavor for the types of questions and that CEOs and board of directors currently have on their minds. And I think we've pretty much seen an evolution of what's on their mind based on where the virus has been. So in the first couple of months, and I describe it as sort of the 4 R's, if you may, right? So the first couple of months, it was all about resolve. How do we respond to this crisis? How do we take care of our workforce, of our employees, of our customers, and our business partners? I think very quickly from that, it moved into what we would call a resilience. Like, how do I ensure financial resilience? How do I ensure people resilience? And how do I ensure supply chain resilience? Then I think kind of where we are right now, it's the next 2 R's. One is return. How do we actually return the business back to scale quickly? And then the part that is really exciting now is and this is universally true, by the way, across all companies, is this notion of reimagining the businesses. It is very clear that after every recession, and I think in more so after this pandemic-induced recession, it is starting to become a winner-takes-all kind of environment in every single industry. So it's the top player, the top 2 players get disproportionate share coming out of the recession. And one of the constant themes across all the CEOs and the boards I talk to across every industry has been that they have to reimagine the business, and it is going to be digital and analytics first. And there's a universal belief that the next normal is going to be digital.
Got it. Thank you, Abhijit. So, maybe we should start with the level setting, how each of you define digital transformation. And what does this include, right? Are there any common misconceptions? John, maybe you can take this first.
Well, sure. So let me start with defining what it's not and talk about some misconceptions. How about automating a bad process? We will get a worse outcome faster, right? So it's not just taking what is your analog world and making it digital. Absolutely not. Oh, I know, here's another thought. Take your data as it exists and develop cool AI models from it. Garbage in, garbage out, bias, right? Data needs to be cleaned and curated and fit for purpose. And oh, what are your KPIs? Digital transformation means more tools and technology, right? No, what it means is that you're meeting the needs of the business. And hopefully a lot of the solutions you are putting into that business are actually passive and invisible. And so be very careful. Do not just digitize existing processes, do not use existing data, and take a DevOps approach and build value, not just technology.
How about you, Abhijit?
Yeah, listen, I think from a definition standpoint, I would say digital is combining three things, right? It's combining data, technologies, and most importantly, changing the operating models of companies. I mean, I think as John just referred to, it's not about the data, it's not about the technologies per se, it's how you change the operating models. And how do you bring those three together to really enable companies to make better decisions, to automate, to connect, and to innovate. And that is to fulfill their customer and their employee expectations, but more importantly, enhance the experiences that they have, right? I think the misconceptions, if I may point out a few, I think John alluded to it as well. I think too often it's seen as a technology out transformation, not a business back view. And the way it manifests itself is it's not clear what the value creation and what the value drivers are going to be, right? Am I transforming my core business? Am I building a new business? Am I modernizing my core technology stack, right? It's very important to be able to articulate what that is. Second is, I always say digital analytics is a team sport. It's not business, it's not technology. It's 50% business and it's 50% technology. It has to be a team sport. And I think the last thing is even the companies that do it right, they have the right strategic roadmap, they have the right technologies, they have agile delivery, et cetera, where it falls apart is they don't invest enough time in the change management and adoption. If you don't get that, you don't get the value, right? On the data and analytics side, perhaps I can point out two things. One is data is the defensible barrier and competitive advantage long-term. Andrew, who's one of the co-founders of Google Brain and a professor at Stanford right now, he had a very great quote, which has always stuck with me, which basically says, among leading AI teams, many can likely replicate other software in 1 to 2 years at most, but it's exceedingly difficult to get access to someone else's data. Thus, data, rather than software, is the defensible barrier for many businesses. So that's point number one. The other one I found is that a lot of companies think of data as oil. I think you must have heard this term a lot of times.
Everybody's using that term.
I think it's misplaced. I think data is more like water. It should be easily accessible. It should be inexpensive to store and transport, and it should be consumable by all.
Well said. So, the next topic I want to cover is, and this is not new because you probably read in every newspaper and every article, right, is how the COVID-19 have accelerated the need of digital transformation. I think we should cover it first, especially in healthcare, John, from you, and then Abhijit, after John, you can take it over internally across different sectors. So, if you can give some of the example, John, it will be really good. Is what have you really seen? Where without this digital transformation or making these changes in your processes, we can no longer make progress.
Well, absolutely. So in addition to my Mayo Clinic role, I also serve as co-lead of the COVID-19 Healthcare Coalition, which is the United States private sector COVID response, 1,200 companies. And what have we seen? 5 stages of COVID. First one was isolation. We all had to get PPE. We had to figure out ventilator supply and demand. Well, it turned out that actually orchestrating the delivery of masks or barriers to people who needed them required new kinds of IT. We weren't actually wired for what I'll call societal resilience to actually be able to deal with these supply chain questions. So we actually had to build all that really fast. And we actually did. You'll find it at c19hcc.org. This is all open source stuff that shows decision makers' dashboards and how to actually get through this. Second thing were issues of testing and contact tracing. How are you going to get test results done and delivered? How can you guarantee their integrity? How do you do tracing of individuals based on proximity to other individuals while protecting privacy? Right? So you see Google and Apple and others have worked together on privacy protecting contact tracing strategies. That was all needed, a very transformational effort. Now we get into cures. Well, which cures work? Do we have time to do clinical trials on everything? Or can we actually scoop anecdotal evidence based on millions of patients' experience in a federated way? That's what we did. And literally in days, we were able to say, oh, this drug looks like it works, this one doesn't. We probably should not use, for example, anti-malarial drugs. Oh, and then we get into vaccines. How are we going to ensure equitable distribution and proof of vaccination? What if you get, because 2 doses, right? You get dose 1 over here and dose 2 over there. How do you coordinate that? You'll see an entire worldwide effort on coordinating the standards for data flows around vaccination. And then, of course, we all will get to the new normal. So you look at this, in a matter of months, we did digital transformation with cooperation and collaboration to build new data sources and workflows that help us get through these 5 stages.
That's very insightful, John. Abhijit, what are you seeing across the technology companies and other enterprises?
Yeah, there's a wonderful cartoon that is circulating on the internet. It basically asks the rhetorical questions 5 years out. And the question is asked of the C-suite in companies. And the question is, who led the digital transformation of your company? Was it the CEO, was it the CTO, or was it COVID-19? And the answer is pretty clear, it was COVID-19, right? And even before the pandemic hit, 92% of organizations across industries believed their business model would not remain viable through digitization. And what we have seen in the last 8 months is absolutely unprecedented. I mean, I think Satya from Microsoft came out about 2 months into the pandemic and said, we've seen 2 years worth of transformation in 2 months. I think we're 8 months in. I think we've seen 5 years worth of transformation in 8 months, right? And the question is, what's driven it? I think there are 3 things that have really accelerated digitization. One is that the customer needs and preferences have changed dramatically. I mean, contactless in everything is here to stay. The way we shop has changed. Even our personal habits have changed, right? And the second thing that's happened is there is enormous uncertainty in demand and supply. So it's very hard to forecast what's going to happen. It's very hard to make sure the supply chain can react. And the third thing that has happened is that we've gotten used to new remote ways of working. A lot of it will come back, but I think we will be in a sort of a hybrid mode for a while. And those 3 things have really driven an accelerated sort of the digitization. And if I think about sort of the 4 areas that have seen the biggest acceleration, it's been 1, the acceleration in the shift to e-commerce. By the way, not just on the B2C side, but also on the B2B side. It's been a dramatic reinvention of the B2B selling models. 90% of enterprise buyers don't want to see their sales rep again from tech companies, right? They want to interact digitally. And then the third thing is, how do I transform operations with data and analytics? And the final one is, how do I actually build new businesses? I think those are the 4 areas that are seeing the biggest acceleration.
Good, thank you. We already covered the topic of, what digital transformation is not. Not every company have the resources of Google's and of Microsoft. They are amazing companies, but they're on the right time and the right place also with their cloud and their SaaS strategies, and they have definitely benefited. But if you look at Abhijit, the service providers, most of the enterprises, they don't have the kind of resources, kind of margins these companies enjoy, or the growth these companies have. So the leaders of these different industries, what question the CEO should be asking themselves, the leadership team should be asking as they basically take the next phase of the digital transformation? Because my belief is, a lot of companies which are not in the tech or if in the service industry are still grasping the full impact of pandemic, the full impact of a digital transformation. So what are the key questions you will recommend that they should ask? And the second thing I will basically say is, what are the common mistakes or the roadblocks you're seeing when it comes to digital transformation?
Yeah, listen, I think you're absolutely right. I think you go to almost any company in the Fortune 5000, and I think universally they are in some form of a digital, what they would call a digital transformation. More often than not, it ends up being a collection of pilots and projects than a truly coherent and integrated digital engine, right? And over the years, I've collected some quotes from CEOs and CTOs and CDOs, which I think illustrate the challenges, pretty well. So I'll probably just enumerate them for the benefit of the audience, right? One is, the CEO says, I can see the impact of digital everywhere except in my operating profit. Second is, I have more pilots than an aircraft carrier. Third is, the solution for everything may be in the cloud, but I need to pay for it here on Earth. Fourth is, we need to deal with a whole lot of complexity to get to the promised land of simplification. And the final one is, there's a big difference between digital natives who can change the company dress code and what it takes to change the company culture. And I think that gives you a flavor for the challenges that companies tend to face, right? And I think that to your question about, therefore, what questions should executives be asking, I think there are 6 things that companies need to do to be really successful at scale. By the way, in our experience, or in my experience, only 20% of companies truly realize the full potential of digital and analytics, right? And the 6 things are, they absolutely need to have a business-led technology roadmap that is grounded in value creation. Where is the value really going to come from? And is future-proof. I mean, if nothing, the pandemic has proved that all assumptions people had about their businesses before have changed, right? Second is, you need to have a very robust talent strategy. And this is not just about attracting the digital native talent and retaining them, but it's also about reskilling your existing talent and relying less on external and building your own internal. The third is around how you truly do agile. And everybody talks about agile delivery, et cetera, but it's not just agile delivery. It's about the speed and agility of decision making, the risk appetite that people have. How do they actually collaborate? The third piece is around technology and tooling, which is, we all talk about all the time, but it's recognizing the importance of ecosystems that are being formed around the mega vendors, whether it's in the infrastructure space, in the developer platforms, or in data platforms, or in applications. The fourth piece is around being able to do very robust data management. In our experience, robust and federated data governance that enables sort of what I would describe as broad and continuous use of data by the front line, has not really played out, right? And so how do you actually do that? And the final piece is what I think is the most important thing. To your point about what questions should executives be asking, I would ask 2 questions around, is it really being adopted, and am I really changing the operating model of the company? I would ask 2 questions. One is, has the leadership team spelled out what it really takes to go from digital value identified in the model to value that's actually delivered in the front line, right? That's question number 1. And then the second question I would ask is, as an executive, are you investing at least as much to build conviction and ability to act as you are in the technology?
Got it. That's very helpful. I mean, John, what Abhijit is saying, how is that similar or different for healthcare?
Well, let me start with a quick anecdote for you. So you know that I left a Harvard endowed professorship to go to Mayo Clinic. And why would I do that? Well, it's because in August of 2019, the CEO of Mayo Clinic posted the following job description. Wanted, physician, engineer, 30 years of digital transformation experience to lead a bold, forward, cure, connect, transform, complete digital-first refocusing of an $18 billion enterprise. Like, how could you say no to that? And I tell you that because it started with a bold vision from a leader that wasn't just a project, it was a process. And it was a change management process that would be a 70,000 person change in culture. And that, of course, is one of the most exciting things anyone could work on for the next decade. And of course, what he did was ask the question, what are the KPIs? Is the KPI that we're going to make a whole lot more money? Is it that the patients and the providers are going to be happier? You know, how do we actually define our success? And the answer is looking at the assets of the corporation, of which data as water, that's of course one of them. How do you look at a 2030 plan 10 years from now and say, we are going to be a category of one leader in taking our assets as they exist today and through digital transformation, ensure the entire future of the corporation. So bold vision, asking the right questions, setting the right goals, getting the right people.
So, I mean, John, it just seems very exciting. And I will just tell you, I am humbled the time I have spent with Mayo leadership. And it's amazing to see how Mayo is leading all part of healthcare, not only trying to help discover a new way to treat patients, new medicines, but also partnering with the new technology companies. But data and how you analyze data is a top priority for companies in all industries, especially in healthcare. Mayo is doing a lot in AI and data. What are some of the examples of this technology in action which you can share with the audience?
Well, absolutely. So as we think about one of the major assets of the Mayo Clinic, we have 154 years of data. Mayo Clinic invented the medical record. And some of that is natively digital and some is analog that has to be turned into digital. But you need a privacy protecting and ethical framework for taking this data and turning it into wisdom, products that will empower patients and help with discovery of new cures and treatments. Let me give you some quick examples. What if you could take the patients of the past and understand their care journey and then give patients of the future higher quality, lower cost, and safer care? So we've looked at several domains to do that. In our cardiology department, we've taken 65,000 ECGs, analyzed them, and developed new diagnostics for looking at ejection fraction, risk of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, atrial fibrillation, and even COVID-19 infection. By looking at all of these historical EKGs, it means the process of getting to diagnosis and cure in the future using these AI tools, augmenting human decision-making, will be faster. Similarly, breast cancer risk prediction and treatment, radiation oncology, minimal radiation dose that's safe and efficacious, faster diagnosis of radiology images, and behavioral health interventions through automated diagnosis of anxiety and depression. I tell you all that because they're all data-based and they're all AI models built in our AI factory based on de-identified data that is cloud hosted and privacy protected.
Vab, can I ask a question on that? This is Sanjeev Goyal.
Go ahead.
If I have your permission.
Sure, go for it, Sanjeev. So
John, first of all, thank you very much for having you on our panel. This is amazing. Vab and me discussed, so I'm glad you agreed to join us at such a short notice. So question I have is, we have tsunami warning system, we have for all the natural calamities warning systems. Why we don't have anything like that for health?
Well, of course, you asked this fascinating question, which is 10 years ago, I've served in multiple national roles. No one said, oh, there's going to be a pandemic coming. What we need is societal resilience. And it was actually hard, as we've been talking about in this presentation, to do the change management of aligning the urgency to change in a guiding coalition and the technology. But I'll tell you what's now happening is in my work nationally with the major tech players, they are all creating departments of societal resilience that are looking at the data collections, the sensors, and the decision support needed to deal with the next pandemic, the next healthcare tragedy. So we've learned and absolutely relate to the game.
John, that's not my real question, actually. The question is, Mayo Clinic has tremendous data of patients. So is NIH, and so is the organization in India and globally. So many people have the data set. That data set is not available. We know the issues of privacy. We know the issues of misuse of the data. And Mayo Clinic, you can take a lead because you are like really on the top. So how do you create a system where data can be shared in the right way and the patient's privacy is protected, but we can do innovation? And the reason I'm asking this question is this was the conversation Wab and me had. We want to foster innovation. We want to foster entrepreneurship. Our platform is all about entrepreneurship and innovation. We are looking for ideas from you and Abhijit and Wab. What kind of companies you want to invest in?
Okay, well, here's what we did. We partnered with a very strong company, and that company de-identified the Mayo Clinic data set and helped us put it into a secure cloud container. And then in partnerships with big tech, we made sub-containers off that cloud container for entrepreneurs to come and exercise the data. And so, right, the whole idea here is you have to build privacy protection, encryption, public acceptance, ethics into it, but in partnership with multiple other companies, large and small. The key is keeping control of the data, because as soon as you start sending data sets around the world, you've lost privacy protection. So that's been for us the right answer. Cloud hosted, de-identified data, sub-containers, and an ecosystem of collaborators.
So how can we find that information? And I can share with 15,000 audience we have, because I guarantee you, you will have 1,000 ideas tomorrow, because data is the biggest problem. And data is the new oil. We all know that.
Sanjeev,
Well,
I will say please go to a company called NFriends.
Oh.
Wait for one of my questions, and I think John probably will cover that company.
Well,
so,
and of course, I can make the introduction to Inference, which is this front door for this collaboration, a Boston-based company.
Good. You know, John and Abhijit, you know, at NTTVC, you know, we encourage startups to harness the power of partnership to scale their impact, and you know, and to really figure out, you know, what role a partnership can play in digital transformation. But this is this question for, first, Abhijit, with you. You know, have you seen the evolution in your clients' willingness to embrace startup technology, you know, versus only working with large, more established player? You know, how do you approach advising which path is right for a given client? Because historically, I worried that the firms like McKinsey may be giving a conservative view to the large corporation and saying, just do a partnership with other large corporations and leave no rooms for startup technology or startup companies. So just like to get your view, you know, what are you seeing, what you're advising your clients and overall as McKinsey?
Well, first of all, just to set the record straight, we never advise clients on specific vendor choices. We never do that. That apart, I think this debate on best of breed versus integrated stacks, you know, startups versus more established, it's not a new one, right? I mean, it's been there forever. I do think there are certain forces at work that perhaps may change how this happens going forward in some ways. what's happening is that the larger players, whether it's in, as I described in, the hyperscalers and infrastructure and development platforms, or application players, like in every other industry, they will emerge stronger out of the pandemic. It happens in every industry. The second thing that's happening is that the talent gap between what these mega vendors have versus what organizations and companies that are the users of those technologies have is pretty small, pretty large, and it's widening. And then there are ecosystems being formed around these mega vendors. All of this goes to say that the influence of the mega vendors on the architectural choices of customers is actually increasing more and more, right? It's less us, by the way. It's more the mega vendors themselves, right? And but all that said, I think the pace of technology disruption and innovation continues to accelerate. I mean, it is incredible, the pace, right? I mean, the average age of an S&P company back 40 years ago was 40 years, right? Now it's like 9, right? And I do think there will always be room for startups. But your original premise, that startups should be part of ecosystems, I absolutely believe that is true, right? Because the mega vendors will have mind share on architectural choices and influence over customers. And then being able to write that not only from a technical standpoint, but also from a distribution standpoint is really important.
Thank you. John, I'm really humble and fortunate to being a co-investor on several companies with Mayo Clinic Ventures, where you're advising and have a very active part with some of these startup companies. Can you really talk a little bit about your vision and Mayo's strategy around the partnership with startup companies, and some of the name some of these companies and the kind of work you're doing with them, and why are you basically betting on a startup company versus just partnering only with the large corporations?
Well, happy to do that. And so first of all, you recognize every company has its strengths, and agile development, getting products into the marketplace, building new marketplaces, this sometimes requires a startup with new ideas, willing to break old paradigms. Now, no one's going to be able to read this, but I just point out, this is a functional architecture for what we're doing at Mayo, and each of the blocks, the modules you see in this functional architecture, it's a different startup company, right? And so, as you say, inference does de-identification, AI, ML, NLP. We have a company that does acute care at a distance for hospitalization in the home. We're starting a new company to look at new ways of interpreting telemetry and digital pathology, right? And so it's really key to say, well, what's the future we all want? And there's no question that you're going to have to assemble a collection of agile participants in a consistent functional architecture to get there. No one big tech company is going to do it. I don't think we're going to see, Google creating a product for, a specific disease treatment, but a startup will.
Thank you. So Abhijit and John, we have entrepreneurs listening from around the world. In a minute or less, if you can talk about where are some of the opportunities for startups to fix the common pain points or technology gaps in the work you are doing, John, in the healthcare, and Abhijit, you on the technology ecosystem. So please take less than a minute, because then I have a very important topic I want to cover, which I think everybody on this session today will pay attention about the vaccine status and some of the misperceptions and opportunities. So before we go to that question, maybe talk about opportunities for startup. Which areas do you think they should focus on? John, maybe you start first, please.
Sure. So I would tell you, don't work on solution identification, work on problem identification. I advise many entrepreneurs, and what they say is, oh my God, have you noticed that there is this problem in healthcare where we're not using data transformation, we're using Morse code, smoke signals, and phone and fax. And then that entrepreneur creates a product, and it can change a category of the industry. So work hard on problem definition first.
Abhijit?
Yeah, so 100% agree with you, John. And by the way, opportunities for startups is more your domain, Vab, than mine. That's what
But
the
you
industry is.
in the boardroom, Abhijit. So I mean,
Yeah.
you're talking strategy, technology. So I love
Perhaps I can point out a few themes, right? One is I think where John was going. I think there is still enormous inefficiency in how vertical specific business processes are run. There's a lot of custom software. There's still a lot of hybrid analog digital processes. Collaboration is not embedded into the context of a workflow of a process. There's lots of inefficiencies. So I do think vertical specific process efficiency and effectiveness is one theme. I think there is a theme around how do you make data more useful and accessible? How do you harmonize data semantics? How do you assure data quality via AI? How do you auto-discover data and build catalogs, et cetera, right? So there's a whole theme around that. I think there is a theme around how do you actually build solutions for ESG, which is environmental and sustainability goals, right? I think more and more companies are being challenged not just about shareholder management, but stakeholder management, right? And they have a duty to the community and to the environment and et cetera, right? And so an example would be, how do you actually manage wastewater in an effective way in a mining environment, right? There are lots of opportunities like that, and they don't have to be zero sum with sort of the shareholder view of it. I think there's another opportunity set, which is around employees, right? To date, we've always talked about productivity of employees. With COVID, we're talking about wellness, but we haven't really talked about how do you actually motivate and develop employees? How do you inspire them? And then the final idea I have is, risk and uncertainty management. We are entering a world where there's going to be enormous risk, enormous uncertainties. And the banks did it in a way when they had to go through stress test. But most corporations haven't done that. And there's enormous opportunity, I think, in that. Just a few of the ideas.
Thank you. I will tell you as we make investments out of our $500 million fund. It's a new fund. I've been investing for 20 years, and there's many times where you come, there is no more innovation. I've never been more excited than now. Both, I call it a future of enterprise, because I do believe every process, as you and John have rightfully pointed out, have to be really redefined. It's not about just patching the technologies, like doing the business in a new way. And also future of the healthcare. I think there's amazing opportunity, and digital healthcare is a very large market. I think if you look at it, what we're going to see in next 5 to 10 years is going to totally blow us out. And I think this is probably the best time for entrepreneurs to take risks and make it, start new companies and be really bold. So the last question I have, and this is very important, John, I can just tell you, I am surprised that even at my home, one of my daughters in a graduate school, one of undergraduate school, and son on a high school, and my wife, there has been a debate about the vaccine. As we get closer to general availability of vaccine, there's a lot of debate about safety of something like that, but developed so quickly. What is your data science telling you, and what's your advice? And maybe you start with, are you going to be the early one, or are you going to wait around?
Well, so the answer is that in theory, we will have vaccine delivery available in this country next week, right? And there's a meeting at the FDA December 10th, and hopefully we'll get to final approval. But point being is that frontline caregivers are all pretty uniform in suggesting that they should be the early recipients of such vaccines. Now, as I mentioned, as a co-leader of the COVID-19 Healthcare Coalition, I have been very much involved in government, academia, and industry during the development of these vaccines, so I can tell you the following. The acceleration, which is of course unheard of, right? Normally it takes 4 or 5 years to do these things. We've done it in a year. Was done by accelerating administrative processes and funding decisions and trial enrollment, not by sacrificing the science. So in this last several months, there has been absolute rigor applied to the clinical trial data analytics and the government reviews And the reason the UK already approved the Pfizer vaccine is simply because they had started the work in parallel. But the FDA will do it in theory next week, and the EU shortly thereafter. So bottom line, I don't think you need to worry about the data and the science. Now, one other concern is, well, okay, we understand efficacy and safety, but what about long term, months after you receive it? So remember, the approval process requires the study of 2 months post-vaccine receipt to look for side effects. And most of the effects are in days, right? They're very short term. But we've already now seen over 2 months for these vaccine candidates with no significant safety issues. And of course, as we begin administration, we'll get even a longer view. So there's your bottom line. Science and data good, efficacy and safety fine, and yes, I will be an early adopter.
Thank you, John. So let me kind of ask one other question. A lot of times when you read articles, right, and anybody can write articles, anybody can put out a research document out there. So it's very hard to process facts versus friction. Historically, when the trials has been done for new medicines or new stuff, it's usually 100, 200, 300 people who get tested and then medicine get approved. Can you just refresh our memory, how many people were under trial for these vaccines?
Right. Well, for each of these, over 30,000.
Okay.
Right. So I mean, it was large numbers.
So it's a very, very large number. Another important point you basically saying is now we already have a few months of post-vaccine data, so we don't need to really worry. There's nothing surety in life, but by and large, the post-vaccine data looks pretty good that there should not be any long-term impact. So we should all try to get the vaccine so we all can get back to our life.
And adverse reporting systems are all automated and will be studied going forward.
Good. John, on behalf of all the audience, I truly want to thank for Mayo's leadership on contributing towards the science, medical healthcare, and more importantly, to all the healthcare professionals around the world. We are in debt for the rest of our lives, what healthcare professionals have done for humanity. So thank you, Abhijit, and thank you, John. If you want to make any last comment, please, you're welcome to make any comments, both of you.
Well, I'll just close by saying there is no question that wellness is going to be a focus of the world, and we need your help. And so let's all work together. My job is to create the platforms and make the data liquid so that you can build the innovations of the future.
Abhijit?
No, just thank you for the opportunity to be part of this, as an IIT alum, batch of 97 from Bombay. It's always
nice.
a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks, Abhijit. You're one of ours.
Indeed.
And we just adopted Web, if you don't know.
Any comment from you, and thank you for giving us a time on this very important part of our life when we are impacted so severely, for allowing us to share the view, both from a technology and both from a healthcare side. So thank you, Rajiv, to you and everybody else. As you know, this conference has been done by all volunteers. So thank you for everyone.
On the behalf of Pan IIT USA and 500,000 IITians, I want to thank Web, you, Abhijit, and John. It's phenomenal, and I guarantee you in last 2 days, what you have done is phenomenal. You have inspired hundreds of new startups. We are sharing your message, your contribution to our startup track especially. And John, what you have shared with us is phenomenal information. Please keep sharing such information with us. We have a lot of students, a lot of alum, they want to start a company. They're all looking for either data or ideas. Give us a problem, give us a challenge. So I wanted to ask one more last question. Do you have a challenge for us? Because as an IIT, and Abhijit knows, we love challenges.
Wow, so you want me to give you a grand challenge?
Yes.
Okay. One of the meetings I have next week is to look at bias in AI algorithms. How do we know that an algorithm we pull off the shelf is fit for purpose? And the answer is there isn't a product, there isn't a standard mechanism of evaluating these things so that in effect we could have a 5-star rating that this is going to do the job I needed. Go build that for me.
All right, you got it. I'll get back to you once I find the solution. Once again, thank you very much. It was amazing and it was great to hear. And I'm sorry it got delayed because of our previous segment. We had some technical issues. But thank you. Have a wonderful day. And I hope you will stay tuned and still stick around and see. We have phenomenal panel coming. Jyoti Bansal is the next speaker and he's waiting for us.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Thank you.